Welcome to the morning drive with Karen. New thing for me. And today it is that there has been a message that God has put in my heart. Turn this down. That has just been very intense. And so I'm practicing it. I'm actually practicing this message. Just trying to make sure that it is the right message. It is that this message is God-given, and that I can record it later, and that way I know what I'm saying, and that I can actually double check my references and listen to what I'm saying and make sure against the Bible that yes, this really is true. It's not just what I'm believing in the Spirit, that I'm testing myself and I'm testing what's being said. So it started off just a lot of change happening all over the place. My personal life, professional life, my volunteer life. Just nothing but change. And with that, with any time there's change, there's fear, there's uncertainty. And I've really had to pray a lot and pray for the people around me. I knew without a doubt that God was leading my steps. Even though I would get very frustrated at what was going on around me, I knew without a doubt that God was leading my steps. But the people around me, the uncertainty I saw in their eyes, is where I started praying. And what I started thinking about while praying was Exodus. And when God led the people of Israel out of Egypt. And specifically Exodus 12. So the plagues have already happened. And all the fear and confusion and just talk about a lot of stuff going on during those plagues. The Israelites being punished in a way by the Pharaoh. And totally doubting Moses and Aaron in what is going on in the mission of God. But at the same time, as those plagues are happening, they are having more and more confirmation that God is behind everything. Even though that they are getting punished by Pharaoh, they are still having more and more confirmation that this is obviously God moving. And that God is still, even amidst the punishments from Pharaoh, the more quotas that they have to do with everything, the more work and labor that they have to do, they are still being blessed. They are being blessed with light in the plague of darkness. They are being blessed with their food supplies being okay in the midst of the plague of locusts and famine. And they don't have the boils when all the Egyptians do. So they are able to recognize this. So as I was walking through Exodus and this journey, and got specifically to Exodus 12. It starts describing the Israelites leaving. Moses led them out of Egypt, and he led them to the Red Sea, the shores of the Red Sea. That God led them. Don't get me wrong. It was God that led them. He had the pillar of cloud during the day and the pillar of fire during the night. So he leads them to the Red Sea, and they are at the Red Sea. And Moses parts the Red Sea with his staff at God's direction. And the cloud, both the cloud of the pillar of clouds and the pillar of light and fire, they basically guard the Israelites back and protect the Israelites from the Egyptians as they're getting ready to attack, so that they can't attack until they are most of the way across the Red Sea. And then the Egyptians, God releases the pillars, and Moses starts closing the sea behind them, and so the Egyptians are able to see all these miracles, and they are destroyed. Well, they're not fully destroyed, we know that, but they are defeated at that moment. So this is what the Bible describes in there. It describes all these events. But I was reading and being guided to in between the lines. That at the beginning of everything, even the Israelites were not united in their mission with Moses, but they were still believing in God. And that by the time it came to leave, they were all emotionally ready to leave. They were ready to get out of Dodge. They were ready for the change. They knew it would be terrifying, but they'd already been through such hardships. And they were ready for this change. And it was okay. They fully trusted in God. All their focus was on Him. Moses was just the one pointing the stick up. They weren't focused on Moses. They were all focused, united on God. And they were all emotionally ready for this. The other thing I picked up was an aspect of preparedness. They were prepared for this change. It wasn't, so there's a difference between being emotionally ready and being prepared. Emotionally ready means that you are going to be able to survive no matter what comes. But being prepared, you're financially prepared. You have all your carts, your finances in order. You have all your communication in order. Means everybody knows what their job is in order to go forward. Everybody has got their tasks set. There was a huge group of Israelites. Talk about a massive effort to move everyone and to be organized in that aspect. They had to be prepared in some way, shape, or form. And when you read Exodus, God did have them prepared. He had them prepared with starting with before the Passover. He told them how to start preparing their bread, even without leaven, so that it could be packed up and gone, so that they can eat it, have it on the go. They were already packed and ready to go. They had their communication plans in place and already active. Everybody knew what to do. They were prepared to leave at that moment's notice. The change that was happening did not come unexpectedly. Now, I really focus on that a lot because in many aspects, professionally, volunteer-wise, and even in some of our personal lives, communication is so key, and it's such a huge detriment to how we handle change. If we're not communicating well, or if we're choosing not to listen because we are not emotionally ready for this change. If we're not emotionally ready for a change, we're not going to listen to our preparation instructions. We're not going to be responding well to them. One of the final thing that really struck me with Exodus 12 and this massive effort to move the Israelites was that no one was left behind. No one was lost in the process. In fact, it tells me how much involvement leadership had in making sure that no one person was left behind and that everyone was involved. One of the verses in Exodus 12 describes Moses. He raised his staff and God parted the sea. But it also says that after the Israelites had passed, Moses was the one to lower his staff again, or raise his staff or lower it, however that worked out, in order to start closing the sea. Well, that means that he had to be there at the back end of the troop for this to happen. He was there at the front, and then he had to wait till everyone had gotten through. He had to wait till everyone had gotten through in order to close it. That means nobody could be left behind. That shepherd mentality was started so very long ago. So very long ago. There was absolutely no lost sheep on that mission. So how does that apply to our lives today? That leadership does need to make sure that everybody has been communicated to. Everybody knows their part. And not just the managers, but that everybody does know their parts. Yes, there's a command structure, That's just how you do business. Whether it be in a church organization or a business organization. But it's still up to leadership to make sure that everyone's on board and that there's no casualties along the way. That you're not losing people because of poor planning, because you're not preparing everyone for the changes to come, and you're not making sure that everybody's ready for it. This is also how we need to be leading our families. The leaders of our families need to be making sure that we are communicating the changes and that everybody is emotionally ready for the changes to come. This way, it is easier. But it's also one key thing in here. For all of these items to be in place, one key thing was that everyone's focus, the entire Israelites' focus, was on God. It was not on Moses. It was on God. It was on the changes that God was doing. It was all on Him. It was on His miracles. It was on His glory. That was really the biggest item that I pulled from this. That when all our focus is on God, on what He wants to do, on what He wants to show us, and on what He wants to change within us. When all of our focus is on Him, then that means we will be emotionally ready because He will be taking us through that emotional process. The communication and the preparedness will be there because we will all be united in that one mission. And no one will be lost because God will not let that happen. God does not leave anyone behind. He does not want any of us lost. He doesn't want any of you lost in any way, shape, or form. And when we put all of our focus on Him, He will change us. That He'll be leading us to a land of milk and honey. Well, thank you. I shall see how this works. Have a good one.